everyone. My name is Juliana, um, and today I will share with you some of my experience in published in top international journals. Um, we know that for us Brazilian, it's very hard to publish in top international journals. So what we want to do is to increase our chances of getting published. So some of the things that I try to do every time that I'm writing a new paper, I'm going to share with you, and I hope it helps. So the first thing that I do is before the publication even starts, before I start writing the paper, I obviously you have your idea, you have your data collected, you know your results, right? But before you start writing your paper, you need to know to which journal you are going to send your work, and you need to make sure that your work uh, is a match to that journal. So do I have some research that makes sense to these journals? Is that something that I would be reading in the Journal of Supply Chain Management, for instance? So how can you be sure about that? Obviously, you can look for the editorial lines and see if your research fits in the editorial line. But sometimes you're not quite sure. What you can do, you can look for in the last 10 years of the journal, of the journal's publications, to see what has been published that in that journal that makes sense to your research. I mean, are there papers there that would be interesting for you to cite in your paper? So in that way, you can sort of understand the debate and how the debate is evolving in that particular journal. Right, so if you have many papers published in that topic in that journal, it makes sense to submit your paper to that journal. Right, but in doing that, you also create some sort of expertise of how researchers discuss your topic in that journal. So you can become familiar with terminologies, you can become familiar with the methodologies that have been used, with the kind of theoretical framing that has been used to tackle your research problem. So this gives you some kind of interactional knowledge for you to talk to reviewers, but also to the editors. So always have a look at the journal before submitting. And even if you're not quite sure after doing these two things, you can maybe write a cover letter and say what's the objective of your research and your main contributions, and send it to the editor. I have done that in the past, and the editor will say, look, okay, your paper is really a fit, is really a match to us. We would like to have this paper for review, or not. So maybe you better submit your paper somewhere else. In this way, you can like save time, because even if your paper is submitted to a review and enters in the review process, it can take up to 3 months for you to get a reply. Look, this is not something that I would expect to see in the Journal of Supply Chain Management. So you lost you lost a lot of time there. So it always makes sense to see if your paper would be accepted for that audience. It would be interesting for that audience. So the second thing that I think it's important to mention, I think it's the review process. So obviously the review process is hard for everyone, and sometimes we receive reviews, receive the reviews, and we get a rejection, which is very common. I think it happens to everyone much more often than we would like to. But sometimes we get major revisions or major and risky revisions, and I think maybe most of the times we get major and risky revisions. So don't be afraid of major revisions or major and risky revisions. They're actually very positive in the sense that the reviewers liked something about your paper. It's either the idea or your data set, but they are saying, look, you have something really interesting here, but there's a long way to go. So it's up to you to take their comments and improve your paper. So don't give up at that stage if you get a major and risky. See that as a really good opportunity to get your work out there. And obviously, in that sense, when you get a major and risky, you get to go through the comments of the reviewers and of the associate editor to see how you can improve your paper. So what I usually do, I wait for a while. So maybe I receive the reply of the reviewers, and I wait maybe a week so I can clear my head. And then I read my paper again, and then read the comments of the associate editor and of the reviewers, and try to understand really why they were saying each of the things they were saying, to see what was not clear in my paper, what was missing in my paper, and get a sense of why am I getting these comments. And after I done that, then I start thinking, saying, look, these are the major things that I need to address. These are minor things that I need to address. And I try to go through the major things first when I'm rewriting the paper. Sometimes doing the major things, you kind of end up correcting the minors as well. So this is how I do it. I think it helps. But what I try to do is always, always, always try to reply to all comments of the reviewers, even if you do not agree with one reviewer in particular. And sometimes you can get mixed comments. You can have one reviewer saying A and then the other reviewer saying B. And then, well, how should I proceed here? And then maybe the best thing to do is look at what the associate editor said. And he'll probably say which direction he believes is best. And you can maybe go in that direction. If the associated editor did not leave a clear position in relation to that, and you're still in doubt, you can maybe write the associate editor and say, look, you have A and you have B. Where should I go? What should I do? But also, if you think B is better than A and we're against the associate editor as well, you can obviously always explain your point and try to explain why your point is different from what they're saying. But I think the most important thing is try to reply to each comment of the reviewers, right? And then be very specific and very detailed on how you did everything. So this is how we have done that. We have changed this in this paragraph, in that section, and this is important because of that, that, and that. So be very, very detailed in your reply to the editors. So this is during the review process. And then if you get a minor revision afterward, then you can celebrate. And if you get another major, it's all right, because it's, again, a new chance of you to improve, for you to improve your work, right? And while you're getting these reviews, I mean, it means that they are still trying to publish a paper. So always be positive about it. And then I think one thing, this is the overall review process, but I think there are some other tips that are important for us that are Portuguese speakers. I think one of the things we sometimes tend to do is we have like a master dissertation or we have a paper that is written in Portuguese, and we translate that and we submit that to the journal. I try not to follow that approach. I always try to write the paper in English from scratch. Because if you translate something, even if it's a very good translator, there will be things that will be difficult for this person to translate to English mindset. So it's better to try to write from scratch and instead of translating. I mean, if you have difficulty maybe writing from scratch, you can always invite maybe a native speaker to review the paper after you translated it, to see if it's not like what they say, the Brazilian English, so this translation that we're saying. So if you have not an option to write in English from scratch, maybe have someone review the paper in addition to the translating, just to have a clear mind. Also, it's always helpful to get friendly reviews before you submit to the paper. So have a friend or someone you know, just read your paper and provide a review like you would do as a reviewer, right? Even if not for that journal. You can have like an outsider perspective, and this helps a lot. So I usually send to 2 or 3 friends and ask, look, if you're not like full of things, and if you have some time in your schedule, could you please help me and provide me a friendly review? And I mean, obviously, sometimes people are very pressed for time and they cannot help it. Sometimes they can, and their comments can be very insightful. So this is something I always do as well before submitting my paper. I would take like the final version, the one that I would submit to the journal, and I would send this to a friend review before sending to the journal. I would add the comments of my friends before submitting to the journal as well. Also, if you had another tip, something that I have done already in the past, is you had like a very tough review. The reviewers pointed several points, and some of those points are not your major, are not your area of expertise. So what you can do, and if that's okay with the journal, you can ask the journal, the editor before doing that. But you can always invite a co-author to help you out in the paper. And as long as the co-author is probably going to help you anyway. So invite a co-author, and so this is someone with expertise in this area, and I'm not familiar with that area, and then this person can actually help you through the review process and maybe trying to bring new knowledge that the reviewers want. And finally, maybe the last tip I would have. So once you finish your paper, go through your references, go to your reference list and see how many papers do you have in your reference list that are from that journal, or that are from journals that are interested in a similar topic. So for instance, how many journals you have from the Journal of Supply Chain, Journal of Supply Chain Management, or from Supply Chain Management International Journal, that two journals that are interested in supply chain management issues. So in this way, you can actually see if you are really positioning your paper in a debate that is closer to what these journals or to what these authors or these researchers are looking for. Okay, so this is it for me. I hope this helps, and good luck with everything. Hope we can all increase our publications in top international journals.